Hey YouTube, Mike here representing Gardenomics, coming at you guys with garden update number 10, how organic nutrient decomposition rates can affect your grow. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is how the varying rates of decomposition for organic nutrients can affect your grow. So what I've done today is, as you can see, I've placed 4 different nutrients on this tray just to give you guys an idea of the form they're in. First, we're going to talk about the oyster shell products, which are my prime example for this video. Now, these are crushed oyster shells, which means that they are simply just broken into smaller pieces, crushed obviously. And these are powdered oyster shells. As you can see, they're obviously the same thing, just one is ground into a finer powder. And this is the best example for it, because this powdered oyster shell is already pretty much broken down. So this is going to be available to the plant a lot sooner than these crushed oyster shells will. And as a grower, once you realize these tendencies, you can use them to your advantage. So for instance, when I am building a container for a fruiting or flowering plant, which in my experience they use a ton of calcium, they actually eat it up. And I believe one of the reasons for that, as I've mentioned in other videos, is that the microlife love the calcium. So your fruiting, flowering plants are really going to devour this. So what I tend to do is I will add a spike of the oyster shell flour and a spike of the crushed oyster shells, or else I mix them into the soil globally. And the reason I do that is because nutrients only are available to the plants once the microlife breaks them down and turns them into forms that the plants can consume. So because these powdered oyster shells are already so fine, you can already imagine and see how much less work that the microlife has to do to break these products down and decompose them. So this is, I add the oyster shell flour because that is almost immediately available to the plant and will supply the plant with the calcium it needs for a couple months. And I add these because these take much longer to break down and supply a much longer, slower, steady source of calcium to the plant. And that will last the plant years if you have enough of it in the soil, because it really does take that long for them to break down. Our next nutrient that I wanted to talk about that you can get different forms of is the lime. Right here I have dolomite lime. And this is the pelletized form, which again, just like the oyster shell flour and the crushed oyster shells, will take longer to break down in the soil and will last your plants a lot longer. And going back to what I was saying about using this to your advantage, is you need to learn what type of plant you're growing and what type of soil conditions they favor. Whenever you get a new plant, you should really do just even light background research, and you'd be surprised how much information you will learn that will help you about the plant's preferences, nutrient preferences, lighting preferences, soil preferences, everything. And if you know this information, then you can determine whether or not you need to get the pelletized or the powdered lime, or whether or not you need the crushed oyster shells or the powdered oyster shells, because you'll know roughly when and how long these nutrients will be available to your plant. Things like, for example, a reason that information would come in handy is for a fruiting and flowering plant, they have longer lifespans than a plant that you grow for the vegetative growth, such as lettuce. So you might not need, if you're growing lettuce, to add these crushed oyster shells, because it's only going to have a 45 to 50 day lifespan. So having this information and knowing when and how these nutrients will become available to your plant is really going to go a long way in helping you with your gardener's intuition. And it really is a skill that's learned over time. Some people are born with just a natural knack, and some people, really learn through experience. And knowing the fact that nutrients decompose at different rates and knowing how the timing of the growing will work will really help you to become a better gardener, as well as provide for your plants better. For instance, in this container over here, as I had mentioned, I spiked, this is a fruiting flowering plant, so I spiked with both the oyster shells that were powdered and the crushed ones. And I've grown 4 plants in this container, and as you can see, they're quite large, and that's because I've provided the nutrients they need so their roots don't have to go looking too far, and they have all the food they need within a small container. So, thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate your time. This has been Garden Update number 10, how organic decomposition rates can affect your grow. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more videos. Have a good day.